Hello, my friends. If you want to stay updated with my new videos, you can support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you in advance for watching. Now, I'm going to tell you about what I've been through. I hope this story surprises you, makes you think, and maybe even scares you a little. My name is Kute. My dad was a very polite man. I always looked up to him and thought that I'd grow up to be just like him. But my mom was completely different. She was short-tempered, direct, and sometimes harsh. Raising 3 kids wasn't easy, especially when it came to dealing with my older brother, who was incredibly difficult to handle. My brother was born with both intellectual and physical disabilities. He would wake up at night and talk to himself. Sometimes he'd have episodes, and we'd have to give him an injection to calm him down. As for me, I worked part-time as a delivery guy at a kebab shop. My sister, on the other hand, was distant, unpredictable, and strange. For as long as I can remember, she never said a word to our dad. When my mom called me to the dinner table, my sister would never sit next to me. Year after year, she'd wait until we were done eating, then go into the kitchen to eat whatever was left over. I remember how she used to take the heads and arms off her dolls and leave them in front of the house door, playing with them in her own strange way. My sister never had any friends. She was always harsh toward me and never went outside. I don't know why, but my mom had never sent her to school. As my teenage years slowly came to an end, I began to mature. I started acting like a grown-up and tried to make sense of life. One evening, after finishing work at the kebab shop, I was walking home. As I approached my house, someone suddenly opened their arms and said, "Brother, where have you been?" I looked up and saw Brahim, a friend from high school. A wave of inexplicable happiness washed over me. I'd been isolated from my friends for so long, caught up in the hustle between work and family life. After catching up on what we'd been doing since high school, we decided to meet up at a cafe the next evening after work. The following day, I went to the cafe where we were supposed to meet. I sat at a table and waited for Brahim. We spent about an hour talking about what we'd done after high school. Eventually, the conversation got boring, so we started talking about family and personal life. I had been holding on to years of frustration inside me. I told Brahim everything about the things I'd experienced with my sister, things I'd never been able to share with anyone. Brahim gave me a look as if I were lying. "Brother, honestly, what you're saying scares me. But if your sister hasn't gone to school all this time, the police would have already knocked on your door." He said, "To convince him," I said, "Come over to our place as a guest tonight." After paying the bill, we left the cafe. It was raining, so I ran home. I knocked on the door, and after a while, my mom opened it. I told her that Brahim was a friend from high school, that he'd had a fight with his family, and that he'd be staying with us for the night. Brahim's eyes immediately focused on the bowl placed outside the door. "Why did you put a bowl out here?" he asked. I didn't know why, but I guessed my mom had put it there for stray animals. Brahim seemed satisfied and said, "If it was for the animals, the stuff in the parking lot wouldn't have rotted. Didn't you see? The bowl is full of maggots." His words made me suspicious. I started feeling like there was always a void in my life that I couldn't explain. After dinner, we went to my room. Brahim hesitantly asked, "Can we smoke on the balcony?" I agreed. I brought 2 pairs of slippers from inside and handed one to Brahim. We went out to the balcony and lit our cigarettes. Just then, Brahim froze with a blank expression, staring straight ahead. I followed his gaze and saw a group of people standing silently about 100 meters away from our house. What was strange was that my sister was walking directly toward them. A sudden wave of fear and anxiety hit me. "Brahim, that person walking toward those people, it's my sister," I exclaimed. We quickly put on our shoes and started following her. It was midnight. Where was my sister going? Who were these people? When we reached the spot where my sister had met those people, no one was there. Brahim pointed ahead and said, "Look, your sister is still walking alone." We continued to follow her in secret. She walked like a sleepwalker, moving forward in a monotone manner. We almost reached the outskirts of our village. Finally, she entered the ruins of an old abandoned school. This school was infamous. People claimed that students there had connections with evil spirits, so the locals burned it down and sealed it off. I didn't want to go inside, but my sister was family. I had to follow her. I turned to Brahim and said, "You can come with me to follow my sister, or you can stay behind, but I'm going in." With a brave look, Brahim replied, "I'm not leaving you alone at this hour. I'm coming with you, brother." We quietly approached the school's entrance. There was no sound around us, and nothing could be heard from inside either. Trembling with fear, we stepped into the building. The moonlight illuminated the area, and the creaking of the wooden floorboards echoed in our ears. The school was small, with only 4 classrooms and a teacher's office. We carefully checked each room in the office, but my sister was nowhere to be found. It was impossible for her to have left through the door, because the school had only one entrance. If she had escaped through a window, we would have heard the boards creak. While trying to figure out why she had come here, my eyes caught something written on the wall. "The darkness feeds my soul." When people witness things like this, they get goosebumps. Since we lived in a village, we couldn't remain indifferent to such eerie occurrences. We returned home empty-handed. My sister still hadn't come back. On the way, Brahim and I talked about where she might have gone. When we got home, my mom woke us up in a panic. "Your sister left the house," she screamed. She broke into tears and collapsed onto the couch. While we tried to calm her down, we also had to give my brother an injection to stop his episode. Just then, my sister appeared, rubbing her eyes. "What happened? Why are you yelling?" she asked. My mom stopped crying and stared at her in shock. The room fell silent. After a moment, my mom asked, "Are you married?" My sister snapped angrily, "Stop talking nonsense. I'm not telling you where I am in the middle of the night." Then she went to her room and went back to sleep. My mom, overwhelmed with frustration, retreated to her room, muttering to herself. What surprised me most was my dad. Despite all the chaos, he remained quiet and seemed to distance himself. It felt like he had finally decided to set some things straight. Either I was going to get answers about everything that had happened, or I was losing my mind. The next day, Brahim and I decided to investigate the area around the school. But what we discovered only made things more complicated. A few days later, Brahim died. His death marked the beginning of a journey that uncovered the dark secrets hidden deep within our village. After all these events, I could no longer distinguish between reality and imagination. My sister's existence, my mother's behavior, and my father's mysterious life dragged me into complete darkness. Even today, I'm not in a position to fully recount this story. If you're curious, you can subscribe to my channel to stay updated with my new videos. Thank you for listening. I love you all.